for the electricity going out. That's never happened in my 6 years in Congress. But before we close, the ranking member and I are going to have very brief closing statements. I yield to the ranking member.
Well, thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for your endurance and patience today. I hope you don't feel as bad about the day as you seem to look right now, but it's going to be over soon. I want to start with a simple point that I hope will be sympathetic to you, and I began the long day with this. It's even more important now that we have members who are actually threatening witnesses with arrest and prosecution for clearly imaginary offenses, or at least offenses that might make sense in their minds, but I don't quite know what they would be. But Twitter is a private First Amendment protected media entity, and you make your own decisions like Fox News makes its decisions. And I might get kicked off of Fox News, or they might not cover me, or Wall Street Journal, or MSNBC. I've got no constitutional right to go there. So I think there's just a fundamental legal fallacy and logical fallacy that pervades most of the questioning today. And my friend, the chairman, and my friend, Mr. Jordan, certainly know that under our First Amendment, there's a state action requirement. There is no state action here. Now, there's an attempt to perhaps jerry-rig some state action by claiming, well, it was really the FBI that committed whatever offense was there. But what do we have in terms of what we found today? Well, today's witnesses, each and every one, testified that no U.S. government official directed any of them to censor, remove, or take down the New York Post story. That was their mistake. 2, today's witnesses all testified that the Biden campaign did not direct Twitter to take action against the New York Post story. And 3, the whole hearing was predicated on the idea that the FBI directed Twitter to take down the New York Post story to protect Biden, but once again, not a single witness testified that the FBI even communicated with Twitter about the New York Post story. So to me, this has been a wild cyber goose chase all day. It has turned up absolutely nothing. But there was one serious point made by our witness, Ms. Navaroli, who said that the violence and the chaos that was wreaked upon this institution, not far from where we sit today, on January 6th, the attempt to topple a presidential election and install someone who had not been elected as president, was facilitated by Twitter and other social media entities. And at Twitter, at least, the brass there specifically rejected the pleas of employees to take seriously all of the signs and clues of coming violence in the insurrectionary action that took place. That's a serious problem that we're going to have to deal with at some point at a serious hearing, Mr. Chairman. I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back. I will conclude by reminding my friend, the ranking member, that you've gone through quite the transition at the beginning of the hearing. You, as well as many of your colleagues, said this was a conspiracy theory. After listening to the witnesses, now you say it's a simple mistake they made in suppressing the laptop story. Twitter is a private company, but they enjoy special liability protection, Section 230. They also, according to the Twitter files, receive millions of dollars from the FBI, which is tax dollars, I would assume. And that makes it a concern of the Oversight Committee. The reason that we've had this hearing is because the laptop has been mislabeled by many in the mainstream media as being Russian disinformation, and that started with Twitter, as well as being tampered with, and you had several people, including Mr. Goldman, that implied that it had been tampered with, even though CBS News and other credible media outlets.
You mean mainstream media outlets?
CBS?
Yeah.
You don't think CBS is credible?
No, I thought you were just calling them mainstream media.
No, no.
Okay.
CBS News. CBS News has done a forensic audit that shows that the hard drive is legitimate and it was not tampered with. So these are misconceptions that are out there, and they started because of the suppression of the laptop story. The reason the laptop's important is because there's evidence on there that should concern every American about potential corruption, as well as evidence that would suggest that there's a possibility that this administration could be compromised because of the millions and millions of dollars that they've received from our adversaries around the world. We believe that's worth investigating. We believe national security is important. We had a hearing yesterday on our border. We believe there's a crisis at the border, and it threatens our national security. We had a hearing today. We believe that we need to make sure that this administration is not compromised because of the millions of dollars that they've received from our adversaries around the world. That much of that evidence is contained in the laptop. So I think this was a very successful hearing. I appreciate the witnesses' time. I know it was a very long day, and again, we've never had the electricity go out before. But again, we appreciate your sincere testimony. And with that, and without objection,
Mr.
all
Chair?
members will have
Mr.
5
Chair?
legislative
Mr.
days.
Chair, I apologize to interrupt. I just, it's come to my attention that I have to seek your unanimous request in order to submit some additional documents.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Apologies.
With that and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and to submit additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. If there's no further business, without objection,